is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire. With me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable. When I asked him what he likes shaking, he says nothing. Hambone, just neat. We're on the rocks. Stu Horvath.
Oh man, yeah, that's true. It's true. You don't need to shake it. Just the way it is.
You know, it's funny when you think about it. I was at a party once. I mean, this was like a bunch of years ago, and there was like the older dudes at the party who'd been like hanging out like since the 70s. And there's the younger people there, and the beer pong comes out. And one of the old guys got real salty. He was like, "You guys shouldn't have to play games to drink." And everyone's like, "Whatever, old man. You know, what the fuck do you know? You told me hanging out at this party anyway," which was decidedly true. However, the dude did have a point, because then as everyone I know got older, they're like, "Oh man, we're not shaking a cocktail. We're just pour it in a glass."
Yeah, just come on.
No more games.
Get rid of all those intermediary steps. We don't need them.
How you doing today, man?
Pretty good. That's why I like basic OSE now instead of like, anything else, because it's simpler.
Less filling tastes great, right?
Yeah. Same great taste. I don't remember the rest of it. So yeah.
Where's Bob Euchre when you need him?
For real.
But tonight we're not talking about OSC. We're actually going to talk about basic D&D.
We are, yeah. The third basic, not the BX. This is BECMI basic.
Okay.
And we're actually going to be talking about a module for the BECMI. That is the CM series of modules, which was for companion rules.
Ooh.
I sort of love the fact that there's just like more and more confusion as the BECMI goes on. Like basic is easy. It's dungeons. And the expert is also fairly easy. It's not dungeons, being like overland wilderness. And then there's companion. Companion, not a word that's really springs any kind of particular concept to mind, aside of like people being companions. Well, maybe that's what it's for. Kind of. The idea behind the companion rules box was to introduce the idea of domains to play.
So not like having a buddy on the mission with you, companions, like in the Doctor Who sense of companions.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, basically, the modules went through these great contrivances to give the players like a barony or a count-y.
Interesting.
Is that what a count has? I guess that is, right? County. Never really thought about it.
Count maybe has their court? No, that's not right.
No, I think it's because it's dukes have duchies and barons have baronies, so counts probably have counties.
Well, now I'm putting it in Google because now I got to know. Let's see here. Count, title of nobility in Europe. According to Britannica, European title of nobility equivalent to a British earl. Ranking in modern times after a marquess, or in countries without marquesses, a duke. Huh. In feudalism, a little further down, a territory ruled by a count was a county.
Amazing.
God, what did we do before we could look up this stupid shit?
It really never occurred to me. I do like the fact that they're equivalent to earls, and I'm pretty sure that earls have earldoms. So I like the idea of counts having countdoms, but I don't know. Anyway, counties. There you go. Yeah, no, you become sort of landed nobility in the CM, the companion box. And it gives you sort of tools for managing that domain in sort of the macro sense, where like you provide for the people, events come up that you have to handle, and then sometimes you have to go on adventures in order to handle them. They don't make as much immediate sense to me. There's just too many factors that it's just not immediately graspable to me. But I think that they're interesting, and I do think that they kind of, having just written a whole downtime system for my West Marches game, I think that there's something really interesting about sort of the idea of domain management and these sort of abstracted activities you do outside of the day-to-day of adventuring sessions. I think that the companion rules have something similar to that sort of downtime thing that has been more formalized in the last few years. So there's, of course, a series of adventures, the CM series, that supported the companion box set. They're sort of a mixed bag. I think the intention was to give you situations that had to be solved by sort of that you insert these situations into the domain, and then players, the landed nobility have to deal with them. In practice, they don't really work out like that most of the time. They tend to be more like these weird things, weird meta events that happen, and then they require an adventure that you go off and you find a thing that fixes the problem. Um, they're not bad, but they again, it's just the elevator pitch just wasn't super refined yet for the companion rules. So I think that it doesn't gel right. It takes a lot of effort to make it gel.
Can I read the official synopsis?
Sure.
Into your hands has been thrust a great responsibility, the management of a growing domain. It has been a hard winter. Now, with the coming of spring, the populace looks to you for leadership. It will take a careful and generous hand to restore your subjects' confidence. But even as you hold your first courts of the new season, an ominous shadow falls across the land. Earthshaker, wonder of the world, has arrived. Will its arrival be a curse or a blessing? With bold action and skillful diplomacy, you may yet avert disaster. But if you fail, the consequences will certainly be the subject of many a minstrel's tragic songs for years to come. Earthshaker includes a complete domain setting, new player characters and NPCs, and complete material on one of the greatest marvels of the old world, the giant and unstoppable Earthshaker.
Okay. Now, if you take out all the stuff about the giant unstoppable Earthshaker, we're just going to set that aside. Does any of that sound remotely fun?
Not at all.
You have a new job, a responsibility to all these people who are going to die if you screw it up, and then they're going to make songs that make fun of you.
Yeah, it's like, in the prequel trilogy for Star Wars, the part that people hated the most was the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Well, this kind of seems like a lot of bureaucracy here. Although the cover is pretty sweet. There's like a castle in the center of the picture. There's a dude and a lady, some light cultural appropriation there going on, looking like they're getting ready to decide their next move against this giant, like iron giant robot that is like smashing up the castle.
Yeah. Okay, so without further ado, the Earthshaker is what really sells this. This is the best of the CM modules, I think. It actually manages to present a situation that's like hard to fathom and like really confusing and like interesting and dynamic, and there's a lot of potential for fun here. The cultural appropriation, it's a Clyde Caldwell painting. So Clyde, I think there's a couple things that Clyde is known for. One of them is gems, and the lady is wearing a gem. Another is feathers. Usually there's like one or two feathers. Elmore does feathers a lot too in the 80s. This woman has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 feathers, I think, at a rough count.
It's like practically a comforter made of goose down.
Yes.
But I digress.
Despite all of the feathers, somebody has appropriated her pants. So very, very uncomfortable looking gown situation. I guess she just got out of bed really fast because this is an emergency because a gigantic robot is attacking the castle. Inside, on the second page, I guess this is the third page, there is a whole small section. It's titled A Matter of Size. An important thing to understand just before you begin playing this adventure is just how big the Earthshaker is. It helps the adventure if your players are constantly aware of the sheer size of the problem that Earthshaker presents to their domain. Earthshaker stands 1,280 feet tall. Below are some comparisons you could use to show what this means to player characters. 1. Imagine the length of a football field. Now imagine 4 football fields stacked end to end on top of each other. Earthshaker is still taller than this. Earthshaker stands taller than the highest dam in the modern world. Earthshaker is taller than the Empire State Building, which is only 102 stories tall, or the Eiffel Tower. If you have a 25 millimeter metal miniature, set it on the floor. Now take a tape measure or yardstick and measure off 17 feet 6 inches. This may take 2 rooms. Or you might have to do it outside. Place another metal miniature at the end of this line. The space between the two miniatures is the size of Earthshaker in 25 millimeter scale, the same size as the figure. If your players still have trouble visualizing this, point out that at 25 millimeter scale, Earthshaker's head would come to about the second story window of a normal house.
Just the head.
Just the head. So you're thinking probably that, oh my God, Earthshaker has come to the domain to kick butt. That's not the case. What Earthshaker is, well, there's a little bit, nobody really knows exactly what Earthshaker is. There's some glancing commentary in the lore that indicates that maybe Earthshaker is a remnant of an earlier age, and the earlier age of the known world, which is what BECMI adventures are set in, was Blackmoor, basically Dave Arneson's fantasy setting for back in the way old times. So 3,000 years before in the known world is Blackmoor. And that was a science fantasy setting, and I guess there's some science fantasy stuff that was laying around. The robot has a long history that's unknown, and then it gets found by the gnomes.
Okay, so you're talking like the smallest dudes finding the biggest robot.
Yeah.
And real quick, how many feet did you say the robot was again?
1,280, I think.
Okay, hold on a second here. That's just wow. 1,280?
Yeah.
So just for size comparison, a tarrasque is 50 feet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Godzilla in 1984, when these things were written, around that time, this robot would be 4.5 times the size of Godzilla.
How about Godzilla now? What's Godzilla now? Like 500 feet?
Oh my God. That is, I got to Google this now. This is the Google episode, guys. You've been waiting for it, and here it is.
We would never make it as sports commentators for a number of reasons.
Yeah. Oh no, Godzilla's not that much taller. He was 382 in the 80s. Godzilla's 394 today.
Oh, okay.
But a short king by robot standards.
Yeah.
Right? Jesus.
So gnomes in the known world used to just be gnomes, standard D&D short people who like rocks. Then after, in the wake of Dragonlance, they became much more like Dragonlance gnomes. And I think that gnomes generally in Dungeons and Dragons are much more like Dragonlance gnomes in the wake of Dragonlance, which is specifically Tinkerer gnomes who make like weird steampunk inventions. You either love Tinker gnomes or you loathe Tinker gnomes. I have kind of a high tolerance for them in certain aspects, and in others I don't. I feel like the joke wears thin pretty fast. This idea that gnomes are sort of enthused by invention, but also not particularly good or safety conscious about it.
That feels right.
Yeah. So Earthshaker comes into possession of the Tinker Gnomes of the known world, and it becomes basically like the one Tinker Gnome clan fortress. Like they live there. They live inside. They live most of their lives inside, making the thing run. It takes an entire clan of gnomes to make the thing run, and they kind of not content to just live there and do whatever you do with a giant robot. They walk it around the world as a tourist attraction. So like traveling circus.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they bring it to that's why it's in your domain. They walk it over and they're just like, hey, why don't you tour the Earthshaker? They have like a little festival. There's clowns and stuff, and it's a good time for everybody, right? Nothing bad could possibly happen, right?
I mean, with a robot that size full of gnomes, one would think you would be safe as churches.
Yeah. I mean, you need a whole tribe of gnomes to move the thing, and the gnomes aren't going to just listen to anybody, right?
No, definitely not.
Yeah. So, of course, it's not that easy. The villain of the piece has wanted to take control of Earthshaker for a while, and he finds out that there is an ancient magical item called like the Mind Gem or whatever. Thanos nonsense. And you get that, and you could plug it into the brain casing of the giant robot, and then you could use that to make it move without having to have a whole team of gnomish engineers doing all of the engineering. So he assembles like this strike force of like sort of a shocking number of villains. I think there's maybe 15 or 16 NPC villains in this team. And while you're the domain character and his friends are touring the giant robot, that's when the villain happens to make his move. It's not There's no real malice intended towards the player. It's just like wrong place, wrong time. This is when the thing is going to go down. It's like he has the opportunity and he goes for it. What's cool, and I think is sort of interesting, is that this is a post Ravenloft module, so there's a lot of narrative ideas in it. But this one sort of eschews what the D&D approach to narrative would kind of eventually become, in that it was a like Ravenloft adventures were specifically pretty bad at this, where they were just like a series of like set piece events where things had to happen and the players just witnessed them, and they're strung together by a little bit of like player agency in between them. I tend to call them event crawls because that's what they feel like. You do like a little bit of adventure, that you hit the new cutscene that you can't actually really interact with.
Did you just come up with that? Is that an actual like RPG term?
I don't know. I mean, I've used it for a long time. I don't know if anybody else has. It maybe. I don't really.
Because event crawl is actually a very great description.
I think I used it in the book. I don't know the provenance. I'm sure somebody smarter than me has coined it, and I just don't remember. But maybe it's a Stewism. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure somebody will. So, Earthshaker is kind of like that, in that there's a series of events that happen when the villain and his team infiltrate Earthshaker. And it's timed. There's specific, like, basically they have a plan, and if the players don't intervene, it happens, as is laid out in the book. Like they take some hostages. There's a battle in the brain of the monster, of the robot. All these things happen, and eventually there's a certain amount of casualties on both sides, but then the villain has control of the robot. And that's all laid out. And then, but it says right at the beginning, is like, this is what happens unless the players intervene. Eventually, if the players get involved, this is going to fall apart, which is like, I think a key difference between this adventure's approach to events and a lot of later TSR adventures approach to events, in that like this one, it's very fluid, and it recognizes that everything is going to change. And it's really, the interesting thing is, how are the players going to change it, and at what point in the string of events is it going to change, and how is that going to affect everything? There's no way, like, as good as like this guy's team is, domain level is pretty high level, and I'm pretty sure they're all fairly, they're a little bit lower than what the party is going to be. So like they're going to be, if the players are smart, I think that they're going to handily dispatch this guy and his cronies, for the most part. There might be a couple pitched battles, but it's more the situation of like, this guy's trying to hijack a giant robot. There's a lot of innocent civilians inside the robot. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you have to account for and worry about. Like, if you're just like really old school players, you could just tear through this thing and kill everybody and be done with it. It'll be a quote unquote success, but will you have actually won?
Right. I mean, therein lies the rub,
And then, there's a lot of question about what happens afterwards. This mind gem exists. Like, do you leave it with the gnomes? Like, are the gnomes, and like, depending on when you've intervened, are the gnomes able to run this thing anymore? Do you have a giant broken robot in your kingdom? Like there's all these interesting questions. And it all, I just love the fact that it's almost like the Italian fest rolls into town, and then all of a sudden it becomes like this disaster that's going to be stuck in town forever.
Yeah, it's pretty much what it sounds like. I mean, it's definitely interesting in a way, because and one of the things I will say, a little thing here, is that I do appreciate how back in the day D&D was like, we're just gonna try something different. You know, and love us for like walking and killing stuff and traps and like weird temples, but we're gonna like introduce other aspects of role play into these stories, for better or worse. Everything, political intrigue can only keep people occupied for so long, I think. But like the whole series is kind of interesting because when you really break it down, like you look, cover to cover, like, CM1 is Test of the Warlords, dude in black armor with a sweet shield on a horse. CM2 is Death's Ride, which kind of looks like, a riff on heavy metal.
I just got to point out that what is on the cover of Death's Ride
Yeah.
does not happen in the adventure at all.
Oh, Jesus.
So disappointing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. And then, like, CM3, Saber River, dragon hovering over a horde. Pretty cool. And then you get to Earthshaker, and you're like, okay, that's different. It's just this giant robot on a cover smashing up a building. Then you go to the next one, CM5, Mystery of the Snow Pearls, typical D&D cover. CM6, Where Chaos Reigns, typical D&D cover. CM7, Tree of Life, typical D&D cover. 8, Endless Stare, typical D&D cover. And finally, Legacy of Blood, right over the plate, typical D&D cover. But, you got to give it to Zeb Cook for going and really, stepping outside of what these things really are, right? Which is like, he got to write an adventure with a fucking weird robot that's filled with gnomes.
It's giant too. Like the scale of the dungeon is pretty ridiculous. Like you basically, if things go really bad, you're gonna fight your way through this entire robot. And it's like, how often does that happen in a D&D game?
And I
Probably
love
should
that.
happen more often.
It should, because that's the kind of weird stuff we like. Yeah, but no, that's definitely it's definitely interesting, man. It's definitely like when you think about the square footage alone, like you imagine like what's the most recognizable dungeon in D&D, like Temple of Elemental Evil,
Yeah.
right? So if you took the entire Temple of Elemental Evil, you could probably fill up like one of this robot's legs.
Oh yeah, it's so small in comparison. Like and think about it. If things go really wrong and you can't take out the bad guy, he's got a 1,200-foot robot. How do you deal with that? Like that's a question that the adventure is just like, we're not going to bother answering that because that like we just can't. But like there's really no like once if he gets away with it, he's invincible.
Yeah,
There's
pretty
no
much.
practical way to defeat him other than pulling the same maneuver that he just pulled, and he's going to be on guard for that. Like, holy wow.
Yeah, because like when Godzilla leaves, Godzilla just goes back in the ocean. And after about a couple hundred feet, he's just gone.
Yeah.
Like this, where if you knock this robot over, you're gonna kill an entire region of a country. Like there's what I mean, am I gonna metagame right now? You gonna polymorph it? I mean, what kind of save would this fucking robot have?
But I think polymorph, you keep the same mass, don't you?
So you would be the world's heaviest toad.
Yeah. like like anything like there's just too much of it. Like you have to find like a big old portal to like the elemental plane of fire and just dump it in like a trash compactor.
If you could fit it, Jesus, that'd be a huge portal.
Maybe you could like enchant like one of those like the string bubble wands, and you make a really big string bubble wand that has like a gate to the elemental plane of fire attached to it, and then you just kind of you walk that through it and just like disintegrate it that way.
Well, it's very cool. It's definitely, I'm going to be thinking about this all night. And it's not what I wanted to think about all night. I wanted to just go back to watching Bridgerton and call it a day. But fuck, I got to figure out how to get rid of this robot.
Because eventually your players are going to want a giant robot. And when that happens, you need to have a way to get rid of it.
You have to get rid of it. You can't not get. Oh, what about see, it's kind of like robbing Peter to pay Paul, because it's like, oh, what about a ring of wishes? You could just wish the robot away, but then you gave these dickheads a ring of wishes.
Yeah, I mean, like you can't even like wake the tarrasque and throw it against it because it's like the tarrasque is 50 feet tall. You need like 100 tarrasques. It becomes like that. Like how many? Like do you fight like one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? Like it's all. Is that the thing?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I remember the end of we had to stop the tarrasque, the end of the campaign.
Yeah.
And like, had I known there was an Earthshaker, I wouldn't have been so worried about the tarrasque.
Right.
Oh, Stu, do you have any final thoughts on Earthshaker?
No.
All right. Well, this is a good one. Another amazing episode of the Vintage RPG Podcast. Stu, where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me on vintagerpg.com. Posts coming at you every weekday. You can click on them, make them big. You can search the site and pull up old posts, and they show up, and you don't have to sort through like a whole bunch of like noise. It's all just right there, neat and tidy. A database of over 500,000 words and almost 3,000 pictures of role-playing games at your fingertips for free, for nothing. I did that. It's my gift to you.
It is your gift, Tim. Hey, did Instagram start like coming correct on your algorithm now? Are they jealous? They notice you like talking to other people and you're, kind of.
No, I think it's actually got a little worse.
Really?
It's terrible over there, man.
Yeah.
It's not it. I don't think it's just that the algorithm's terrible. I think that the whole experience has become so bad that people left. So
Yeah.
I think there's just like a lot less people to engage with over there.
Yeah. Brian Shutter and I, the Neon Lord, we announced Brain Eaters today. By the time you hear this episode, it's gonna be like a week gone. But we announced it, and no one saw the posts. I have 13,000 followers. No one saw the posts.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It doesn't matter, folks.
Fix it.
Yeah. I'm sure they'll get around it. Doesn't matter, folks, how many followers you have. They're not going to see your posts.
Yeah.
Well, you can find me across the internet at John McGuire RPG. On the Instagram that I'm complaining about, I've been posting more pictures of my cat, as well as, other things that I've been up to. I've been going out a little more. Probably going to post some pictures from Orville Peck from the weekend, as well as other games I'm working on. We're hoping to have a nice update soon on the Hotel Exorcist, which just keeps getting bigger because it's a hotel, and the hotel is a lot bigger than we thought, and Death by Dino. If you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Your reviews really do help other listeners to find us. And if you really like the show, why not become a patron? Patreon.com/vintagerpg. We got a behind-the-scenes look at everything that Stu's working on. We got a behind-the-scenes look at everything I'm working on. We have early release episodes for as little as $1 a month. You get them on Friday or Saturday at some point, depending on when we record them. But hey, we're actually trying to record more in advance now, like people who take this seriously. So hopefully Fridays is when you're going to get these episodes. We have a killer Discord community that we'd love you to be a part of. At the $5 tier, you can play a game with me every month. I do a different RPG every month that you vote on, and I run. At the $10 tier, Stu has an ongoing West Marches campaign. We're playing some games. We're having some fun. Patreon.com/vintagerpg. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners to find us. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dega West. Art by Schaefer Brown. If you like the podcast, you should also consider becoming a patron at patreon.com.